Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were starting to unravel this intriguing concept of Arsa Payı, the land share that each apartment owner has in a Turkish building.
Yeah, it's a really key aspect of the whole Malikleri system, and as you hinted, it can be a source of, both influence and potential conflict.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's say a decision needs to be made about the building, something like, I don't know, like a major renovation or a change to the common areas. How does this Arsa Payı factor into the process?
Well, remember that the management plan is like the building's constitution. It outlines how decisions are made, and often the Arsa Payı directly translates into voting power.
So the owner of, I don't know, like a penthouse suite would essentially have a bigger say than someone in like a smaller studio apartment.
That's the general idea, yeah. It's a system that aims to reflect the level of investment each owner has in the building.
Yeah, I can see how that makes sense from a certain perspective. But wouldn't this system give too much power to owners of, larger units? What if they band together and make decisions that, benefit them but disadvantage other residents?
That's a valid concern, and the Turkish legal system does recognize that potential for imbalance. That's why there are safeguards in place.
Okay, so what are these safeguards? How do they prevent a few, big owners from running roughshod over everyone else?
Well, for one, the management plan itself often sets limits on the voting power of larger owners. For example, it might stipulate that certain decisions, like those impacting the building's structural integrity, require a higher majority vote, perhaps two-thirds or even three-quarters of all owners.
So even if, like, a few large owners control a significant chunk of the Arsa Pie, they can't just, like, steamroll through any decision they want.
Exactly. And there are also provisions in Turkish law that protects minority rights within Katmilkiyadi buildings.
I'm really glad to hear that. So it's not a complete free-for-all. There are checks and balances to ensure fairness.
Absolutely. Now, while we're on the topic of disagreements, let's talk about, what happens when conflicts arise between residents in these shared ownership buildings.
This is what I'm really curious about. I mean, things are bound to get heated sometimes, especially when, money and property are involved. How does Turkish property law handle these disputes?
Well, the first line of defense is usually the building manager or Yönetici. They're often tasked with mediating disputes and trying to find amicable solutions.
So they're like the resident diplomats trying to smooth things over before they escalate.
Exactly. And a good building manager can be incredibly valuable in maintaining harmony within the building. I mean, they know the residents, they understand the nuances of the management plan, and can often find, creative solutions.
Yeah. But what if the dispute is, like, more serious, or the building manager can't resolve it on their own?
Right.
What happens then?
In those cases, Turkish law provides a clear pathway to seek legal recourse.
So there's a process for taking these disputes to court.
Yes, and it's a well-defined process. However, Turkish courts actually prioritize mediation and out-of-court settlements in these types of cases.
That makes sense. I mean, it's probably in everyone's best interest to find a solution without, resorting to a lengthy and expensive legal battle.
Exactly, and it reflects a broader cultural tendency in Turkey towards finding peaceful and collaborative solutions.
I'm really impressed by, like, how much thought and consideration has gone into creating a system that, balances individual rights with the needs of the community.
Yeah. It is a carefully crafted system. And speaking of the community, let's shift our focus to another intriguing aspect of Turkish property law:
Okay.
the restrictions on businesses operating within residential units.
Ooh, this is what I've been wondering about. I remember reading something in these documents about certain businesses being, like, strictly prohibited.
Yeah.
So what are the rules here?
Well, imagine you've just bought, your dream apartment in this beautiful Turkish building. You're settling in, enjoying the views, and then suddenly you realize the unit next door has been converted into, like, a noisy auto repair shop.
That's my nightmare.
Right.
So thankfully, there are rules in place to prevent that kind of scenario.
Exactly. Kurdish property law is very specific about what types of businesses can operate within residential buildings. For example, hospitals and clinics are strictly off limits.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I don't think anyone wants to live next door to a medical facility. What about less intrusive businesses, like, I don't know, like a small shop or a quiet office? Are those allowed?
That's where things get a bit more nuanced. While certain quiet businesses might be permitted, It often depends on the specific building's management plan
Okay.
and requires the consent of other
Oh,
residents.
even if I own my apartment, I can't just decide to, like, open up a bakery in my living room.
Not quite. The community aspect of Cap Mokieti comes into play again. You need to consider the potential impact on your neighbors and seek their approval.
I see. It's about respecting the shared living environment and ensuring that everyone's interests are taken into account.
Precisely. And this extends to even seemingly minor things like renovations.
But
If you want to make significant changes to your apartment, you might need to get approval from the other owners, especially if those changes could affect, the building's structure or common areas.
wow, so it's a very interconnected system, even within your own apartment. You're not entirely on your own. You're part of a larger community.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of the, limitations on individual actions, there's another fascinating aspect we need to discuss: the process of forced sale.
Forced sale. Now that sounds a bit ominous. Under what circumstances could someone be forced to sell their apartment in Turkey?
It's not something that happens lightly, but there are specific situations where Turkish law allows for this, primarily to protect the interests of the other residents and the building as a whole.
Give us an example. When would this, drastic measure be taken?
Well, imagine a situation where one owner consistently refuses to pay their share of the building's, common expenses,
Okay.
like maintenance fees or utility bills. This puts an unfair burden on the other residents, and if it continues despite warnings, they can take legal action.
So it's a last resort when someone is like blatantly disregarding their financial obligations
No.
and putting the community at risk.
Exactly. And it's not just about financial matters. Forced sale can also be pursued if an owner is engaging in activities that severely disrupt the peace and well-being of other residents.
Like what kind of behavior could lead to this?
Think extreme noise disturbances, illegal activities, or actions that damage the building's common property. If an owner's behavior is consistently detrimental to the community and all other attempts to resolve the issue have failed, forced sale can be a last resort to restore harmony.
Wow. So it really is a measure taken only in extreme circumstances to protect the collective good.
Exactly, and this brings us to another crucial aspect of managing these shared ownership buildings: the roles and responsibilities of the building manager or Yönetici.
Okay, let's dive into that. From what we've heard so far, it seems like they have their work cut out for them navigating all these potential conflicts and ensuring the smooth running of the building.
They certainly do. And in our final segment, we'll explore their duties, how they're chosen, and how they contribute to maintaining a peaceful and well-functioning community within a Turkish property.